listening and solutions, and really taking and stepping into their leadership role as we really think about how we work together and find common ground around these issues related to health inequities and housing. We're really excited to continue this conversation this morning as we close out the conference, really talking about the next step, right? Getting things done. And we are so excited to have with us this morning Becky Margiotta, who is with the Billions Institute. And most of you are probably familiar with her work around the 100,000 Homes campaign. She has been a great leader who has really been working with nonprofits and foundation executives around getting things done. So please help me welcome her to the stage so she can all inspire us as we leave this morning.
Thank you, Jahan, and thank you to the whole team at the Colorado Health Foundation. It's really an honor for me to be with you here today. I think I'm the last thing between you and the raffle, so I also appreciate you being such a captive audience. I want to start by stipulating something that I know we can all agree on, that housing is healthcare. And you know this in your bones, and I know this in my bones too. So let's just start with putting that on the table. One of the people that I look up to most in the world is Dr. Jim O'Connell. He's a doctor out of Boston's Healthcare for the Homeless, and over 20 years ago, while he was doing street medicine, he realized that a lot of people that they were working with were dying way before, way premature mortality. So they commissioned a study to find out what was actually happening by looking at their health records, and they found out that 8 conditions, when they were associated with street homelessness, had this huge premature mortality effect on par with some forms of cancer. This is how Jim thought of it. If you can see this picture here, this is one of Jim's pictures. This is the wrong picture though. This should be, yeah, go back. There you go. Nope, keep going. This. So Dr. Jim O'Connell, he was like, if only I could write a prescription for housing for 30 days with 11 monthly refills, right? And he said, if only I could do that, right? So at the time I learned about this study, I was doing a housing first form of street outreach in New York City. And this was back in 2005, 2006. And a lot of research that gets done, let's just be honest, it sits on a shelf and gathers dust. But as soon as I met Jim and heard about his research, I knew immediately of the urgency and importance of what he was sharing, because me and my team, while we were working to get people out of the streets and into housing, bypassing New York City's shelter system, we were going to too many funerals too. So we took his research in those 8 conditions and we plugged it into our outreach protocols. And we systematically and methodically canvassed the streets of New York City, specifically Times Square at the time, asking people, do you have any of these conditions, and prioritizing them for housing based on if they had those conditions that would put them at a high risk for dying and how long they were out there. I saw with my own eyes what happens when you can prescribe housing, like Laura O'Day. That's Laura when I met her on the streets of New York City when I was doing street outreach, right? She had spent years and years on the streets and was battling with all kinds of addictions and health problems and health challenges. And then we were able to work with her to get into housing. And then the next slide should be Laura, right? And this was her after a couple weeks in housing, literally. And then I went back to visit her about a year later. I was going to the movie theater at the AMC in Times Square, and this is who was giving me my popcorn, was Laura O'Day, right? And so this, we know for sure, right? We know for sure that housing is healthcare. Then I went and worked on Skid Row in Los Angeles, and that's where I met Ed Givens. Ed Givens, very similar situation, had 24 years on the streets of Skid Row, and like Laura, the transformation is immediate and astonishing. And I could show you hundreds more photographs like that. In fact, I could show you 105,000 more pictures to be exact. Our methods and tactics in Times Square became the foundation for what would become the 100,000 Homes campaign that I had the honor of leading from 2000 to 2014. And during those 4 years, me and my team worked with folks just like you in cities all over the country, 186 cities, to identify and house as quickly as possible people who had been living on the streets for a long time and had high risks for mortality. And over those 4 years, those cities moved 105,000 people straight off the streets and into housing. People who had otherwise been left to die anonymous and unknown on the streets. And so that was a huge, huge learning thing for me. And that campaign ended in 2014, but the work continues, right? And all of you continue to do that work in different ways. And one of the things that inspires me the most about the way that this work is continuing is the increasing clarity with we're putting a racial and social justice lens on the work. The issues that you have front and center on the agenda in this conference are exactly what we need to be talking about, and it's rare for them to be talking about in most conferences that I go to. So I want to honor that and really appreciate that and say that's not just about doing it or talking about it, it's about doing it, right? So I'm assuming you've learned a lot while you're here. I'm assuming you've met wonderful co-conspirators that you're going to continue to network with and do big things when you go home. I'm assuming you have a big to-do list of great ideas that you want to implement. I'm assuming maybe you met the love of your life at the conga line last night, right? Right? I'll give you a pointer. This is why I'm married now to my wife. If you met somebody that you really liked last night, this is how I am now married, happily married 9 years. Text them and say, we should make out sometime. It worked for me. My work is done. My work is done here. All right. But the real question is, you've got all these great ideas, but what are you going to do about it? What are you actually going to do about it? And sometimes I find that people want some technical answer, some expertise answer, but they did a study of people at a leadership conference, just like you all in the UK a couple years ago, and they asked them, what is holding up your big change efforts? And 12% of the respondents said it was something technical. 88% said it was something relational. And of those 88% who said it was something relational, 58% said there had been a relationship challenge at work that had been going on for 6 months or longer. Right? So this is very common, and I think this is the holdup. Right? So my company now, we train people who are doing large-scale change in the social sector, over 750 leaders. They come to me wanting the technical solutions, but what they really need are the interpersonal and relationship solutions. Because here's what happens. We're doing really complex stuff, especially when we're battling racism and all these different long-standing, historical, really horrible, ugly things. We need to be able to be nimble and be with complexity and be able to change our plans. There aren't any silver bullets. But what there are is stupid, you know how David Letterman talks about stupid pet tricks? There's stupid human tricks. There's a lot of stupid human tricks out there, and I am not exempt from that. I do stupid human tricks too, and that's the thing that stops us from when we go home being able to do the change we want to do. So what I want to put on the table as an antidote to the stupid human tricks that we all are guilty of is some basic principles and practices of transformational leadership. And what I mean by transformational leadership is leadership that literally transforms your followers into leaders themselves. Right? Leadership that transforms the world. Leadership that unleashes people to get big things done. Leadership that sets the conditions of orchestrating the loss of control of thousands of people you may never meet, moving in generally the right desired direction. The alternative really is transactional leadership. You do this, I'll give you that. Here's a carrot, here's a stick. And that grew out of factory models of command and control, and it's just no good for the types of things that we're up against right now, right? So it is with great humility that I offer you 8 provocations of things you can do as a leader to be more effective at transformation. 8 things you can do that will increase the likelihood that you'll bring out the very best of people and eliminate entirely the stupid human tricks, right? And so that you can realize the ambitions that you hatched this week. I was my own guinea pig in coming up with this list. Some of them are going to be from mistakes and failures of mine that I want to be really honest with you about so you don't make my mistakes. And some of these things are things I learned from some phenomenal leaders that I was lucky enough to be able to learn from and follow. So you'll hear their stories too. I know 8 is a lot. I don't expect you to memorize them. There won't be a quiz. But my hope is that 1 or 2 will resonate with you and you'll feel a little zing in your heart and you'll be like, this one's for me. Thank you, Becky. And I know that there's also that there will be some for other people. So you can write those down and be like, I need to tell Larry about number 6, you know, and make sure you pass that along, right? So are there any Larrys here today? We're going to pick on you a little bit. Okay, great. All right. So let's do this. Let's share these 8 practices of transformational leadership. So the first is transformational leaders are absolutely unwilling to micromanage. And this one is hard for the control freaks in the room, right? Is anybody else a recovering control freak like me? Okay, well, you're not alone, right? You're not alone. We've got to cut it out. It's demoralizing for our people. And people long for opportunities to grow and learn and try and make mistakes. And part of it is our responsibility as leaders is to give them the opportunity to fail. So I want to take you back to 1993. I was a first lieutenant in the United States Army stationed in Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. It was rough duty. And I was in a signal officer, so we made sure that the whole division could communicate with one another. And I was in the systems control center. This was my job. And I was the junior officer on the team, so guess what that meant for me, the junior officer? Night shift, night shift. Some of you do night shift, right? So we tracked the whole network. There was maybe 20 nodes, and each node was a different unit that was communicating with one another. And we'd simulate as realistically as possible what we would do if we were to go to war. So we really tried to take this very seriously. And one night, and we would track them on this board. And so we used, literally, this is magnetic dry erase board with green dots if the link was green, and red if the link was red. Right? So we would swap it out real time as the communications network was evolving. I'm sure now it's on an app or something very sophisticated. So one night around 2 a.m., we received our first notice that one of the links had gone down. So we went and we changed the link from green to red, and this happens, this is no big deal. Then we got the call about the next link. Then we got the call about the next link. So we're like just red, red, red. You know, my stomach turned. The whole network was going down in a catastrophic failure. And I know the military is different from the civilian sector, so I want to try to think of how I might help you relate to what it feels like to helplessly watch as one thing after another goes red, red, red. And then I thought that the Democrats in the room will be able to resonate with me from the election day and how that feels when things are going down fast and bad. So it's awful, this sinking feeling, right? So we did everything we could to fix things, but at one point it was bad enough that we realized we have to wake the boss up because the boss had to go present, had a meeting every morning at 7 a.m. with the general, and she would be the one who'd be called on the carpet if the whole signal network was down. And you know, you draw straws on who's gonna go wake up someone at 3 in the morning, and nobody wants to do this, but it was that bad. So we went and woke up General Hicks, and we're standing there in front of this all-red dry erase board and explaining what had happened and discussing our options. And General Hicks, like, she just kind of stood there and took it in, and she understood the gravity of the situation. She nodded her head, and I was the junior person, right? And she came up to me, and this was the biggest surprise. I was not expecting it. She poked me in the chest really hard, like 4 times, and she goes, "Unfuck this, Lieutenant." And then she did like another tap, like for like the punctuation mark. And I was like, oh goodness, what just happened here? and then she walked out and went back to bed. And I was like, what are you doing? And before you judge her, let me tell you this, she went on to become a 2-star general, and she's beloved by everyone who ever served with her, right? And why did she leave? And I know that it's not that she didn't care, right? It was her on the line the next morning. I don't think it was that she needed her beauty rest, and if she wanted to, I'm absolutely confident she could have said, "Step aside, Lieutenant, I've got this from here," right? Like she knew how to do what we were doing. She could have showed us how to do it. Here's what I think. I think Major General Jan Hicks was more interested in me learning from mistakes and learning how to fix things than she was in her own reputation, in her, you know, in how things looked, right? This was a learning experience. She knew she could buffer for us with the general. We didn't know. We didn't know that. And she was willing to risk her own reputation to give me room to fail and grow. 25 years later, I was driving through Augusta, Georgia, and I looked up General Hicks and I said, "Can I take you out to lunch?" And we had this wonderful reunion, and I told her, I recounted this story for her, and she didn't even remember it. This thing that changed my life. She just howled with laughter like I was telling her something off of a MASH TV show. She's like, "That's so funny." You know? And as I reflected, I'm like, well, maybe she just really wanted her beauty sleep, you know? And sometimes that's how things go. It was nothing to her, but it was everything to me, right? And so my guess is for a lot of us in this room, myself included, this goes against all of our pedagogy and all of our training as leaders, that we have to be the ones with the right answer. We like being needed. We like being important. I like being needed. I like being important, right? But leaders who bring in their best out in their people can step back and say, what do you think we should do about that? and not always have the right answer right away. The next generation is raring to go. Look at those Parkland students, right? Did you see that student who was on the national stage in Washington and like threw up and then kept going, right? We just got to get out of their way, right? Right? And the Extinction Rebellion that's happening in the UK right now, like this is phenomenal, right? It's in all of our best interest to take them under our wings, but then give them room to fly. And I think the world could use a whole lot more leaders like General Jan Hicks. And the lesson that I want to share with you, transformational leaders absolutely refuse to micromanage. Never, never, never. Catch yourself doing it. Okay, number 2, transformational leaders redirect attention from the individual to systems and structures. And again, I learned this in the military. I'm astonished many times by how many things I learned in the military that are so relevant to doing social change and social justice work. Fast forward to 1997, and the Army had just opened up some of its special operation units to women, and I was lucky enough to get asked to serve as the first woman commander in a special operations unit. Bravo Company, 112 Signal Battalion, airborne out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Right? That's right. I had 100 soldiers who reported to me, and we provided the communications for Special Forces, Green Berets, Rangers, SEALs, others, whoever. We were the comms for special operations. So being the first woman, what was in my mind my first week on the job? I got to be a badass, right? Like I got to just like walk in a room and like kick a garbage can just for the hell of it, right? Right? So right, like that's what you do, right? That's the thing. So my soldiers came up to me the first week and they said, "Hey man, we've got a problem. Specialist Johnson is coming to formation drunk, so morning PT formation. We have to do something about this." And I knew exactly what we had to do. We had to make an example out of Specialist Johnson because that doesn't happen on Captain Becky's watch, right? So I had the lawyer draw up the paperwork and was all like, "Yeah, we gotta kick out Specialist Johnson," you know. And I didn't have the authority to do it all by myself. I needed my colonel to sign off on this thing. So I made an appointment with the colonel, and I went in there all just like big chested and like you remember like Mini-Me in Austin Powers where he's like just going like this. I was like, "Yeah, I got this," you know. So I say, "Hey, sir, Specialist Johnson, he's been drunk at formation several times. We need to kick him out, right? Here's the Article 15 paperwork." And he said, he would lean back. I hope I don't show my tummy. He'd lean back in his desk and lean back in his chair, and he goes, "So, Specialist Johnson, what's going on in his life that he does this?" And I was like, "I don't know, sir." And he goes, "He's already been to drug and alcohol treatment, I see." And I was like, "Yes, sir, 3 times. He's failed 3 times, you know?" And I was all self-righteous. He goes, "I tell you what, I'll sign this paperwork, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to the drug and alcohol treatment program, and you find out why they didn't fix my soldier." And I was like, "Okay." I was not expecting that at all. And I went to the Army Drug and Alcohol Treatment Program and like knocked on the door, and I was like, "Why didn't you fix my soldier?" He really had a point, right? What's going on with the success rates of our drug and alcohol programs, and why are we putting all the blame on the individuals and not looking at the broader systems and structures and circumstances at play, right? So this lesson I learned when I was maybe 27 years old has stayed with me, has totally stayed with me. And to follow up on the story, we eventually did discharge him out of the military, but it was under much more humane circumstances, and I was much more humble, right? That Colonel Howie Cohen gave me the gift of this insecure, cocky little captain in the Army, the gift of reorienting my attention from people towards systems and structures. And I want to take another moment to appreciate the way that that's happening exactly at this conference as well, right? From the undrawing redlining exhibit, I was just completely captivated by that, to all the sessions that I heard about. We need more conferences like this. I wish there were more conferences like this, committed to shining a spotlight of truth on the real of what's happening out there. So I'm just honored, glad that you all are doing that. Which leads directly into my third point, is transformational leaders tell the truth. So one more story, last military story. 1997, don't ask, don't tell was still the policy in the US military, which meant if you were gay, you weren't supposed to tell anybody. And if you thought someone was gay, you weren't supposed to ask, right? That's sort of what we all lived with for a couple of years. And it may be like really, really obvious, but I'm definitely gay. And so, we were at morning PT where all things seem to happen, and just kind of like stretching, getting ready to go for a run or something. And I was the company commander, responsible for the lives of America's sons and daughters, and my Lieutenant Eric Hines, came up to me. He's just stretching. He's like, hey, Captain Cadence, I have a question for you. He kind of pulled me aside from everybody, and I was like, what's up, Lieutenant Hines? Like, acting all tough, And he goes, hey, are you gay? And this is my inner monologue, just so you know. I was like, if I tell him the truth, I violated the don't ask, don't tell policy, and I could lose my job, and not only lose my job, but like I would feel embarrassed about that, right? Like I was more closeted then. It would have been the worst thing I could have imagined happening. Now, if I tell Eric if I lie to Eric, and he knows I'm lying, or I know I'm lying, then if someday we're in a combat situation and I have to ask Eric to do something that he would be putting his life on the line, why should he trust me? Why should he trust me if I lied to him, right? So I had, in a split second, to weigh this moral dilemma of kind of save my own butt and lie, or tell the truth and risk that, but also do what I felt was the right thing. So fast forward, and my brain is racing, and I'd go, yeah, what about it? Like that, you know what I mean? And he goes, I thought so. There's this really cute girl I met the other day, and I think she's gay too. And he wanted to hook me up. And I was like, and then I regained my composure, and I was like, that's really inappropriate. I'm your commander, And, give me her number. And then, so I think I made the right decision in that moment, at that time. But it's not always easy to do that. It's not always easy to do that. And it's entirely possible that you will go forth from here, from this rich conversation about systems and history and justice and injustice and oppression and liberation, and looking at the deeper root causes of what you're up to. It's entirely possible that you will be tempted to speak half-truths when you leave here, right? That you will be tempted to lick the hand that feeds you instead of biting the hand that feeds you, right? And I can relate. I've been here too. The dilemma is real. And in many cases, the people with money and power, they don't want to hear that they have to change, right? But we all know it. Everyone in this room knows that's true, right? I'm reading Winner Takes All right now by Anand, let me say his name right, Gurahadaradas. I think that's how you say it. And I've got to tell you, I am freaking out a little bit. If I feel guilty about the times in my own past where I've told half-truths instead of the whole truth, or where I've licked the hand that feeds me. During the 100,000 Homes campaign, we got interviewed by Anderson Cooper for 60 minutes. And again and again and again, he asked me, yeah, but do those people deserve housing? He kept asking it. It was like I went back to my prisoner of war training. It was just, again, I thought I needed to smoke a cigarette or something, right? And I had two answers for him in that, right? That were the right answers by my organizational culture and everything at the time. My first answer was, well, it costs more for us to do nothing as a society than it does to just house everybody. And where I was in my understanding at that time, I was like, right answer, And then he kept pressing, and my second answer was, everyone deserves a second chance. Now, and then he relented a little bit. Now, all I did right then was mostly redirect towards the person deserves a second chance, right? I knew better than this, right? But the other piece of it was I never mentioned redlining. I never mentioned many other things, right, that have been depicted right here in this room right now on that amazing mural out there. I never mentioned the massive reduction in investment in public housing that's happened in our country, right? I never mentioned my mortgage income tax deduction, which is more than a Section 8 voucher probably, right? I didn't mention that. So if I could have a do-over, Anderson would be like, do they deserve housing? And I would be like, I don't know, Anderson, do you deserve your mortgage income tax deduction? Or do I, right? He probably paid cash. But you know what I'm saying. It's hard. It's hard to bite the hand that feeds you, right? I played right into the neoliberal trap that Winners Take All warns us about, right? Like, look, we have solutions that don't hurt. In fact, they save money. Jazz hands, right? And I felt like just doing a little dance, like it's okay. Nobody has to change. I know it's not easy to speak truth to power, and I've gotten this wrong myself, and when I know better, I do better. I commit to doing better going forward. And I look back on that conversation with Lieutenant Hines, and I think part of what gave me the courage to tell the truth in that moment was I was thinking about life or death issues. I was like, okay, well, life or death might be on the line, so let me tell the truth here. And I think for me, as I go forward within some of these social justice and racial justice issues, is to remember that these are also matters of life or death. And might that give us more courage to tell full truths to people in power. And we don't have to bite the hand that feeds us, but like we could nibble. Nibble a little bit, right? I think that that's a start, right? So transformational leaders tell the truth, always. This next piece is that leaders build consensus towards bold, quantifiable aims. So I see this again and again and again in the social sector, that we have really huge, grandiose aspirations, but we don't put a number and a time to them. And so we keep them in the realm of vagueness. And what that does is it dissipates energy, and you've got all these great ideas leaving here, and then Monday you're going to be on to the first crisis and forget about it, right? And I'm not saying you should do it all by yourself in the car on the way down. This is a consensus process, is really important. But the importance of bold, quantifiable, time-bound aims cannot be overstated. In 2004, Dr. Don Berwick launched a campaign to prevent 100,000 unnecessary deaths in hospitals, the 100,000 Lives campaign, at a time when hospitals were in the top 5 leading causes of death in this country. And this is the quote he used to launch his campaign. It's one of the best, most inspiring examples of a quantifiable time-bound aim I've ever heard. He said, "Here's what I think we should do. I think we should save 100,000 lives. And I think we should do this by June 14th, 2006. 18 months from today. Some is not a number, soon is not a time. Here's the number, 100,000. Here's the time, June 14th, 2006, 9 a.m. This is the next thing he said. He said, and when we do, we will celebrate, starting with pizza and ending with champagne. We will celebrate ourselves because their names can never be known. Our contribution will only be what did not happen to them. And though they are unknown, we will know that mothers and fathers are at graduations and weddings they would have missed, and that grandchildren know grandparents they might not have never known, and holidays will be taken, and work completed, and books read, and symphonies heard, and gardens tended that without our work would only have been a bed of weeds." What Don instigated was incredibly rare in the nonprofit sector. Nobody was willing to risk failure like that at the time. I was living in New York City working on street homelessness on the time that I heard about the 100,000 Lives campaign, and I was so inspired when I heard about it that I thought, we should do the 100,000 Homes campaign, just from hearing about that. And sure enough, my next project became a reality soon after that. 4 years later, 105,000 people were in housing from 186 cities. I guarantee you that would not have happened if we hadn't done the how much by when. So whatever level of scale you're working at, the how much by when, you don't have that, it's just word, 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 right? It moves things from the realm of woulda, coulda, shoulda to it's on like Donkey Kong, like we are doing this, right? It's a catapult into direct action, and aims form the container within which all of the creativity is unleashed and takes place. But without those aims, it's just too diffuse, it's too much. So some is not a number and soon is not a time. What will be your version of that? Number 5, we're past the halfway mark here. Commitment, leaders commit. I learned about the power of commitment from my mentor, Katie Hendricks, and what she taught me that means is gathering your energy and moving forward in a direction. And it doesn't mean that you don't lose track, and it's the recommitting that's the most essential thing. But what turns quantifiable, bold aims into reality is leaders committing to making those reality and almost living in an imaginary future as if it were real. That's what I do when I am creating change in the world. I'm like, no, this is happening, I'm committing to it. And it's not the Thelma and Louise, like I'll do it if you do it, and you drive off a cliff and hold hands. This is like, this doesn't need anybody else. This is you and your higher power, whatever that may be. That's what commitment is about. It's what brings it to life. It's what says you mean business. And I'll tell you that when I was doing this, every ounce of my being was committed to 100,000 people being in housing. And when I create new goals or new things now, I commit. That is the thing that turns it on. With the 100,000 Homes campaign, I was so committed that I got a tattoo when the 10,000th person moved into housing. You can show that picture now. So you can see the last 0 is missing. So and there were 90,000 more people who needed to move into housing. So when I would stand up in front of rooms like this and say, well, we're either going to house 100,000 people or I'll have a lifelong testament to failure. Like that's, and there was one moment, it's a different story for a different time, where we were on track to be the 30,000 homes campaign. And I was like, you guys, my tattoo. We got to do this, right? You got to get some skin in the game. So commitment is contagious. And it builds commitment in your followers. About halfway through the 100,000 Homes campaign, the people on my team, they were like, Becky doesn't know that this might not happen. And I was like, what are you talking about? Right? Nobody wants to follow somebody who's in it half-ass, right? There's a motto at the CrossFit gym that I don't go to often enough, and it says, don't half-ass anything. Whatever you do, always use your full ass. And I think that captures it. You want to be all in, whatever it is. When you commit, you're stepping into a reality that doesn't exist yet. That's what I think is so wonderful about what all of us are doing. We're creating reality. This is what we're doing. We are creating reality. The commitment is like, it's the open template, right? So I'm not saying you need to get a tattoo to show your commitment, but there is a tattoo station set up outside. So if you're really serious, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't. I'm just kidding. Okay. But at least do something tattoo-worthy, right? Something you would be willing to put on your body. Leaders commit. 6 and 7 I've put together. So leaders are humble about what they're not good at, and the corollary is leaders liberate people to be their best selves and do their best work. I think this is 90% of it. So long before there was a 100,000 Homes campaign, I was slogging away as the Director of Innovations for MacArthur Genius Award winner. She's an amazing woman. Her name is Roseanne Haggerty. I worked for her for 11 years, and she's a dear friend, right? She hired me to reduce street homelessness in Times Square by 2/3 in 3 years. We got it down by 87% in 4 years. And after that, she said, you're kind of good at startups. Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah. It was a long time ago, yeah. And she said, you're good at startups. You started up a whole program just from scratch. Why don't I put you in charge of all the startups that we have? And I'll pay you some more money. And all I knew about how to do better in the world was like more responsibility, right? That was my model of like, if someone's offering me more responsibility, I seize it, right? So I became the holding place for all of her good ideas that she would have. And then she would hand them off to me, and then my job was to make them reality, just like the work we had done on the streets in Times Square. Now, this is a MacArthur Genius Award winner that has no shortage of good ideas, right? These are, any of y'all, are you yourselves, or do you know people who email at 2 in the morning? Every day. So you get up and you're like, woo, fresh start, I already have emails. Okay. For years, and it was exhilarating. She dragged me along everywhere. This is like who I am today, is because she dragged me everywhere and took me under her wings. But fast forward a couple years, and I had 9 direct reports, and I was getting really burnt out. I had bitten off more than I could chew, and I thought that what my job was to do was to please the boss, right? That's what I thought my job was, versus to get the work done. So then when I'd get those 2 a.m. emails with a good idea, I thought my job was to say, absolutely yes, let's make that happen. Or if she emailed me at 2 a.m. with a question about, hey, is this thing happening? Or I noticed something that was a little off, I felt defensive. And I started getting bitter, and I felt micromanaged, right? And really what was actually going on was I was angry at myself that I didn't think of it first, because perfectionism is also rampant in our society and all this stuff, right? So I started getting just really crispy, right? I don't know if some of you have been there. I'm seeing some nodding heads, right? So every day when I would commute on the Q train from Brooklyn to Manhattan, I would rehearse my quitting conversation in my head. I was probably talking to myself. People were probably wondering if I needed assistance, but my inner monologue was again and again was like, and then she's gonna say this, and then I'm gonna say that, and then she's gonna say this, and then I'm gonna be like, I quit, and I would like be saying this to myself. And then I was fleeing into the future having these conversations, like again and again and again and again for a long time. So one day she emailed me and she said, hey, let's talk about how things are going. I'm gonna be in Soho. Let's meet at Dean and DeLuca and have some coffee. And like at 2 o'clock or something like that. And going into that meeting, I was absolutely certain of one of 2 things. She was gonna fire me, or I was gonna quit. So at the time I had a BlackBerry back in the day, and I was like, I'll be there, like I'll see you there. So we get our coffee, and we sit down and my heart is racing, and thankfully, she offered to go first. And she started with something along the lines of like, Becky, you're one of the best leaders I've ever met in my whole life. And I was like, go on. And then she goes, yeah, but you're not a really good manager. And I was like, yeah, I've thought that myself sometimes too, you know? And then she said, and this changed my life, what can we do to free you up so you can lead instead of manage? And if we really freed you up, what would you want to lead? And I mean, what a gift, what a gift. We reorganized the company. I think 5 people got promotions up to 6-figure jobs from taking on projects that I was letting go of, you know? And it cleared the way for me to have the spaciousness out of which the 100,000 Homes campaign grew. That's what I wanted to lead. Her question changed the course of my life, and I hope you can ask others that question as well and pay forward Roseanne's question. But here's another regret that I had. I wish I had had the maturity to approach her proactively and say, not really good at management, this kind of actually sucks for me, but is there another way I can be of service, right? That there's a real humility in being honest about what we're not good at. And those things that we're not good at, when we operate in an individualistic culture, which is very much the culture that many of us are a part of, our broader culture in the United States, things we're not good at are reasons for guilt and shame. They're items for discussion during annual performance reviews, right? Which I'm not a fan of. They're to be hidden and covered up about. In an individualistic culture, the proper response to our weaknesses is this: lie, deny, and make immediate counter-accusations, right? Get that out. And in a more wholesome culture, one that brings out the best everyone, the things that we're not good at, they're simply places where we need other people. They're places where we need our community. And I share this with you because I think this is one of the highest leverage points for going forth and making big change in the world. Noticing what people are great at, noticing what brings people to life, and freeing them up to do that, like Roseanne did for me. It really might be that simple, that there's never any need to blame or criticize or save things up for annual performance reviews, like, oh, I'm going to really give it to them in March, you know? But freeing people up to do what they love. And there's this other part to it, too, of the humility of leaders by creating room for honesty, by modeling that ourselves. I think it takes humongous courage for a leader to admit what they're not good at. So I think when you go back to your next staff meeting, I want to offer a template of just to be like, hi, my name is Larry, and I suck at blank, whatever that may be. But I think there's huge power in being really honest about what we're not good at. So transformational leaders are honest about their limitations, and they look for ways to liberate the very best in others and free them up to do that work. Number 8, leaders appreciate. What we appreciate appreciates. It grows in value. When we give attention to something, it grows in value. And authentic appreciation is rocket fuel for unleashing your people and the relationships. I don't mean just ending your emails with thanks and an exclamation point. I think that happens a lot. I mean real appreciation, seeing people, noticing people. I noticed you stayed late last night, and I really appreciate your willingness to go above and beyond for this, right? Like whatever that may be. Or like appreciating someone on the dance floor. Like that was beautiful today to see those appreciations of people, the joy and the celebration. The relationships, relationships, relationships. Large-scale change work, transformation in the world is only relationships. It's only people changing what they think, changing what they do, and that only happens through heart-to-heart connections. And some people think that that's fluffy stuff. I think it's the work. And appreciation is what makes it work. So my team at the 100,000 Homes campaign, I used to hear them calling one another their brother, sister, husband, wives, right? Or sometimes I'd overhear them being like, we would bleed for each other. And I was like, whoa, no, don't do that, right? But we appreciated. We had, when we would go on our semi-annual retreats, we would do an appreciation dinner where we would just sit down to dinner together and one person would popcorn an appreciation for someone else. Tears, hours of appreciations. It was built into the day-to-day as well, but these appreciation dinners were the glue that held us together. So I'll just share one quick warning of don't do what I did here. So I had the best kindergarten teacher in the world. Her name was Mrs. Moncher. I loved her. Did any of you else have great kindergarten teachers? They're amazing, right? I remember going to her one day and I was done my work and I was like, Mrs. Moncher, I'm done my work. What should I do? And she was like, you could give me a hug. And I was like, oh, that's the best. And like a Mrs. Moncher hug was like the best hug in the world, right? And I wasn't the only one. So fast forward 30 years later, I'm in New York City. I'm at the LGBT parade, the gay parade. I'm in Union Square. And I met a guy who had gone to the Air Force Academy, and he was gay too, and we're at brunch, because that's what gay people do. And we're just making conversation, and he goes, "Where'd you grow up?" And I was like, "I was in Phoenix. I grew up in Phoenix, Scottsdale, Arizona." He goes, "Oh my God, me too." And he goes, "Where'd you go to school?" And I said, "Oh, it's this small Catholic school. It's called St. Teresa's." And he looked at me and he goes, "Mrs. Moncher?" We both said it at the same time, and we started crying. It was like, that's the kind of teacher Mrs. Moncher was, right? And for many years, I would Google Betty Moncher. And I never found her. I don't think she was up on the internet, right? Until 2 years ago, I emailed her, I Googled Betty Moncher, and she did pop up, but it was her obituary. And I had missed the chance to tell her thank you, right? And I will regret that forever. So never, ever miss an opportunity to appreciate someone, preferably before they die. Don't die, but appreciate, right? So here's what I want to ask you to do today, everybody in this audience, is right now think of somebody that you appreciate, whether it's a teammate, a colleague, someone who put on this conference, your kindergarten teacher, your significant other, whoever it may be, a mentor who has challenged you. Larry, you've been wonderful, right? Whoever it may be, right? And commit to appreciating that person before the sun goes down. A text, a phone call, out of the blue. In my trainings at the end, I say, "Who helped you be here this week?" Okay, stop everything and text, write an appreciation to them right now, right? And give them 5 minutes to do that. Take the time to do that. Transformational leaders appreciate, and what you appreciate appreciates. I want to appreciate Jan Hicks, Howie Cohen, Eric Hines, Don Berwick, Katie Hendricks, Roseanne Hegarty, and Mrs. Moncher for being the kind of leaders that I would follow anywhere, and for helping me become the person I am today. And I want to appreciate everyone in this room for your very generous attention. You've been very kind as I hold you back from the raffle. I hope that something I said resonates with you and is something that you can carry forward in your own way, in your own work, to help yourself and your people do the important work that you're doing. I hope that Larry listens to you when you tell him about number 6 and how he needs to really work on that. And I'll do a quick David Letterman style recap here from 8 to 1. So 8, what you appreciate appreciates. 7, liberate people to do what they love. 6, if you suck, say you suck. 5, put some skin in the game and commit to doing something tattoo-worthy. 4, some is not a number, soon is not a time. 3, nibble the hand that feeds you. Speak full truth to power. 2, redirect attention from individuals back to systems and structures. And as General Hicks said to me, and I now pass along to you, consider each of you being poked really hard in the chest by like a middle-aged, little bit chubby lesbian saying like, "Unfuck this." There's some really, I'm gonna give that to you. Go get it, right? Thank you.